are doing reviews on the ZF, Z6 III, and people are seemingly not well versed on these cameras, but are making videos about, what they think it should be and how it should perform. And I have to say to myself, as a person who reviews equipment, I tend to like to make sure I know exactly what's going on with the camera and learn about things. You've heard me say in past videos that I'm looking into the manual. And yes, I'm a person who is really self-taught when it comes to my previous job in IT. And when I start to get some new equipment, I look in the manual to figure out how things work. I'm a guy, lots of times we try to make things work on our own without delving into the manual. But over the years, you learn that, you probably should start with the manual to get a feel for things, especially if it's something that you don't really know. Now, when you're going to talk about a product, it makes sense to have some kind of understanding of how things work and get a better feel for it. But there are times when, I think this is probably the key. There's a trend. Something is trending right now. A lot of people want to jump on the bandwagon and get a video out about the trend. But not everyone actually spends the time to learn the product, to give a really good understanding of how the product works. And there are times when folks come from like a different brand and they have a bias, and they tend to, go from that standpoint of looking at the manual system and trying to figure out how the thing should be set up. And then they complain that this thing is not working as it should. And really, I think it's really how they think it should, as opposed to how it actually should work. We're all guilty of that on a certain level, because if you're comfortable with one operating system or a way a particular thing works, and let's use a car as an example. You've been driving, let's say a BMW, and you get into a Kia, totally different. You have to learn how things are set up. The lights are on the stalk, they're not on the dash. And as far as air conditioning, things could be set up a bit differently. And I'm using this because, I've had those vehicles and those are certain things that I had to learn. When you're answering the phone, for example, the buttons are on different sides of the steering wheel. Trying out a Tesla, everything is in the screen. No heads-up display, no instrument cluster. Totally different thing, right? But if this is something that you decide that you're going to get, you're going to have to spend some time learning how this new thing works. The same thing goes to cameras. If you're coming from Sony, Panasonic, Fuji, and you're coming to Nikon and you've never used one, or even if you used one in the past, the menu system could have changed from the last time you used it, and figuring out how that is set up is going to be an important thing. But when you're putting that information to your audience and it seems as though you are just like lying to a certain extent, that's what some people would call it in the comments. But I think it's a lack of educating yourself on a product. And, people like to say, Wayne, you don't like to take that straight road and it's like knock people out. And I think some terms are a bit forceful. And I like to try to think from that other person's perspective and see why they would do certain things. But there are times when, people do a review and they say they've used a camera for a while and they realize that what they're saying isn't quite exactly the way things work. And had they read the manual, because seemingly from what they're saying, people talk about those creators or influencers who get cameras early and you do a 2-week review on them. A lot of us are probably not, we watch it to get an overview, but then we know that lots of times they don't have that much time with their product to really give you a good feel of the product. So you have to wait until people actually get it in their hands to know about it. And it's kind of sad when you see a lot of folks just want to jump on for the trend and are putting out false information. Some people are willing to listen and understand, like, oh, I didn't realize that. And some people are like, no, that's how it works for me. And that's what it is. Like, yeah, but it's not true. So my point for this video is, when you go out and you watch videos, you have an opinion on something, and lots of times it doesn't match up with what a presenter is saying, and you can share your thoughts on that and basically help the community to understand how things work, because not everyone knows everything that works very well. Granted, if you have a creator that just thinks that they're the expert on everything and, are not willing to listen, that could be somebody that may not be the best of providing information. And you have to take all of our opinions, because that's what they are, opinions, with a grain of salt. Because I may use a camera a certain way and I find that things work in a certain way for me, the way I like to set it up and the way I like to use, and it may differ from your use case. For example, I may just like to shoot portraits, not sports. I'm not going for the 56, 20, 30, 60, 120 frames per second of what my Z8 can do.
And I owe it all to Yahweh. Lord knows that I couldn't do it my way. Almost bought a ticket for the fast lane. Now I'm hopping on a flight to the Everglades to forget the pressure.
Because to me, I can probably get the shot I look for in, 5 frames per second shot, or maybe something a little bit more. But then again, if you utilize that as a sports person, you can tell the difference and see how things work. So when I see people do tests like, oh yeah, the hit rate is like 90%, is like, well, let's be honest about things. And about just like filming a movie or shooting professionally, you know that you're probably not going to get the shot the first time, the second time, maybe the third time. Sometimes it takes multiple shots. But what matters in the end is the end product that you're going to show. And in some situations, you do have time to reshoot. If you're shooting birds, it may take a couple of days of trying to get that one shot. If you're shooting a person in a studio, you're going to take multiple shots to get that look. And even the guys who've been shooting professional for years, may take a shot of a person and the person is posed in a certain way that doesn't give them the look that they actually want. They may slightly blink or something happens, and it takes multiple shots. So when people are knocking things and like, well, I shoot like this many shots and you only get like 70% out of it and so on, it's like, okay, and you got some shots, right? But you're still trying to find that one that's going to work. And in the back, you're probably going to find something, or you can reshoot it. Not a big thing. But they make it sound as though, oh, wow, this camera just can't do what I want to do. So again, opinions, they matter to a certain extent, but it's not the be all and end all to everything that's out there. And I suggest if there's a camera that you're looking at that you want to buy, while you watch reviews and you watch videos and you read about things, the best way to find out if it's good for you is to just go out to a store, if you have one, and take a chance on it. When I got the FX30, there was no store to loan me one. I flew from Bali to Singapore to get the camera, played around with it in the store. I didn't see like that was a massive difference to my Z6 II at the time. Not until the camera guy turned on some settings and then you can see what's going on. And I did a video about that in one my older videos, like things I would like the Z8 to have and that it doesn't have. And I did reference in there that there's like a pre-AF feature that's in the Sony cameras that basically makes the camera start focusing as soon as you pick it up and there's a subject out there. Yeah, that's a cool feature to have, right? And of course that makes the camera snappier. But if you turn that off, it's just like any other camera. You got to hit that shutter button for it to, focus on what it's focusing on. And as someone who has FX30 and A7R5, they're just like any Nikon camera. They're not going to get every subject every time. You have to do some settings in the menu to tweak things based upon what you're shooting. That's why you usually have menu banks. So guys, whatever brand of camera that you like, test it out if you can. Take our opinions with a grain of salt and, see which one works better for you. I want to thank you guys for watching the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.